They said it was just a flood. But what happened to me that day went far beyond rising water and broken streets. My name is Katie Reynolds. I'm 38 years old, a wife, a mom, and until recently, just another ordinary woman from Texas. But after what I lived through, I'll never see the world the same way again. On the morning the flood hit, I was trying to save our cat and a few family photos. The next thing I knew, I was dead. No heartbeat, no breath. I had crossed over. And in that moment, floating outside my body, I encountered something that shattered everything I thought I knew. I met Jesus. And he didn't just comfort me. He showed me what's really going on behind the scenes of this world. What he revealed was a spiritual war, one we've all been living in without even realizing. I saw how deception has been weaponized by a global elite, and how this hidden agenda is being pushed through fear, division, technology, and distraction. But I also saw hope. I saw a coming awakening. And I was sent back with a message you need to hear, because something is coming. And soon. If you felt it too, that unease, that sense that something deeper is going on, you're not crazy. You're waking up. And what I experienced in my near-death encounter will help you see why that feeling won't go away. This is more than just my story. It's a revelation about what's happening in America and what's coming next. Before I continue, do me a favor. Comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I want to see how far this truth reaches. And if you believe this is more than coincidence, subscribe to the channel Truth from Beyond so you don't miss the next part of this journey. Because what happened to me could be a glimpse of what's coming for all of us. I used to think my life was pretty ordinary. My name's Katie. I'm 38, a wife and mother living in a quiet part of Texas. We didn't have much, but what we had was enough. Love, laughter, and faith. My husband, Jake, worked construction, and I stayed home with our daughter, Ella. We had a small house, an old cat named Clementine, and a garden that barely held up in the Texas heat. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We cooked together, prayed together, and at night, we'd watch the stars and dream of simple things. Ella's future, maybe a better car, and more time as a family. But none of that prepared me for what was coming. The flood came without mercy. They called it a once-in-a-century event, but it didn't feel like nature. It felt targeted. The rain had been pounding for days, and we knew we were in danger, but nothing prepares you for how fast the water rises. One moment we were packing a few things, the next, the windows shattered. A wall of water exploded into our home, and the current swept everything, books, furniture, pictures, our memories, into a chaotic spin. Jake grabbed Ella and screamed for me to follow, but I slipped trying to reach for Clementine, who was meowing under the couch. That's the last moment I remember being alive. The water was so cold, it felt like knives against my skin. I remember gasping for air, reaching for anything, cabinets, chairs, God. But nothing held. It was chaos, dark and alive, like something wanted to pull me down. There was a sound, almost like a hum beneath the water, low and unnatural, like it wasn't just water I was drowning in. I felt like I was being watched, not by people, but something else. Something that didn't want me to survive. There's a spiritual war going on, and most people have no idea. That day, I became a casualty in more ways than one. As I lost consciousness, I saw flashes. Ella's face, Jake's voice, a memory of Christmas morning, the cross in our hallway. But then something else. A sharp image of eyes, many eyes, watching from darkness. It didn't feel like hallucination. It felt like I was being pulled through a veil. I knew I had crossed a line, and whatever was on the other side It wasn't just death, it was revelation. There's a hidden agenda playing out right under our noses, and it's not coming from just governments or the elite, it's spiritual. The flood may have taken my breath, but it also unlocked something I was never meant to see. I felt my body go limp, my lungs burning, and then nothing. Silence. And then peace. A peace I can't describe in human words. As everything went black, I didn't feel fear. I felt release. And just as my life slipped away, I felt something lift me. Out of the water, out of my body, out of everything I ever thought was real. But what came next wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A truth far greater than I was prepared for. A truth Jesus himself would soon show me. When I opened my eyes, if you can even call them that, I was no longer in the water. I was above it, floating, weightless. My body was still down there, lifeless, tangled in debris, but I wasn't. I was hovering near the ceiling of what used to be our living room, watching my husband scream for help, clutching our daughter like she was all that mattered in the world. And I just watched, not with panic or sadness, but with an impossible sense of calm. It's like I had crossed into something bigger than pain, something eternal. The air around me shimmered, not like heat waves, but like reality itself was rippling. I looked down and saw other shapes rising, forms like mine, translucent, almost glowing. I didn't know them, but I recognized them somehow. We were all being pulled upward, as if drawn by an invisible current. I understood instantly. They had passed too. Some were children, some elderly. One even looked like a firefighter still in uniform. There were no words exchanged, but we knew. We were out of the body now, between two worlds. And something was waiting. But even in that surreal calm, something deep in me was stirring. A knowing that what just happened to us wasn't random. There was meaning behind it all. Something spiritual. A revelation was coming. You see, most people don't realize we're in a spiritual war. It's not just about good versus evil in some abstract sense. It's a battle for perception, for identity, for truth. And it's happening right now. In every scroll, every headline, every political promise. And in that moment outside my body, I saw just how much deception has taken root in this world. I hovered there, suspended, as the floodwaters continued to destroy everything we had built. But I didn't feel loss. I felt understanding, like I had been blind my whole life, and now I could see. I could sense the presence of something holy moving toward me, but also the echoes of darkness retreating. I could almost hear the voices of those who had passed, some relieved, some confused, some still clinging to the illusion of life. It was then I knew. Not everyone who dies wakes up. Some stay asleep, trapped by the same lies they believed while living. And then, light. A light, so pure it made the sun look like a flicker. It wasn't just bright. It was alive. It drew me in, not by force, but by love. I knew who it was before I even saw him, Jesus. And he wasn't coming to condemn. He was coming to reveal. My journey wasn't over, not even close. What he was about to show me would change how I saw everything. The world, America, faith, even myself. I wasn't just about to meet him. I was about to understand the truth behind the shaking that's already begun. The moment I crossed into that light, every fear I'd ever known melted away. It was like standing in the presence of a love so total, so overwhelming, that it swallowed every failure, every secret shame, every scar. I didn't walk toward him. I was drawn. And there he stood. Jesus. Radiant, but not distant. Powerful, but so deeply personal. He didn't speak at first. He looked into me, not at me, but through me, like every thought I'd ever had was laid bare. Yet I felt no judgment, only truth. Pure, undiluted truth. Without words, he showed me my life, not like a slideshow or a timeline, but from the inside. Every moment of kindness, every lie, every time I chose fear instead of faith, it all passed through me. But I didn't feel accused. I felt invited. Invited to understand who I really was. Not the version I showed the world, or even the version I believed about myself, but the truth of my soul. And in that space, something broke in me. The realization that I had been living under so many layers of distraction. I'd let the noise of the world drown out my purpose. Then, he spoke. Not with lips, but directly into my spirit. "You are not finished." His voice carried weight, like thunder wrapped in warmth. "There is more for you to do, but first you must see." What followed wasn't a dream. It wasn't imagination. It was a revelation, a download from heaven itself. Jesus showed me what's really happening, not just in my life, but in this world. The layers beneath the headlines, the hidden agenda behind the chaos. It's not just politics. It's not just economics. It's spiritual. There are forces pulling strings that don't show up on camera, and too many of us are asleep. He showed me how the elite, yes, that word, have been building systems designed not just to control, but to distract and spiritually numb us. Entertainment, social media, polarization. We've been taught to fear each other, to argue over things that don't matter, while the true battle, the spiritual war, rages right beneath the surface. And here's the kicker. They don't even hide it anymore. It's all out in the open, but we've been conditioned not to see. And it's working. Families are breaking. Faith is mocked. Truth is twisted. And Jesus, he wept. But he wasn't hopeless. He showed me flashes of what's coming, a shaking, a holy disruption, not to destroy but to awaken, because he loves us too much to leave us asleep. I saw storms, literal and spiritual, fire, darkness, division, even civil unrest, but also glimmers of light. People falling to their knees, crying out, reconnecting with him, not because a preacher told them to, but because something inside them finally broke free. He looked at me, eyes blazing with compassion, and said, "You must tell them. This is not the end. This is the invitation." And in that moment, I knew what I had to do, and that my journey wasn't over yet. Jesus lifted his hand, and in an instant, the light around us shifted. I wasn't in heaven anymore. Not fully. I was standing in between, in a space that felt like a window into Earth's spiritual reality. "Look," he said, and what I saw shook me to my core. It was America, but not the America we see on the news. This was the soul of the nation, wounded, fractured, and flickering like a dying fire. I saw people rushing, scrolling, arguing. Their faces were glued to screens, their hearts hollowed by fear, pride, and distraction. And Jesus said, "They've forgotten me, but I have not forgotten them." I saw families under the same roof, but miles apart in spirit. Kids addicted to noise, parents consumed by anxiety and comparison. Homes filled with devices, but empty of presence. The digital world wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was infiltration, a force designed to divide and isolate. There was something demonic about it, and I don't say that lightly. It was feeding darkness through distraction, disconnection, and deception. The spiritual war was being fought in Wi-Fi, waves and algorithm traps, and most of us didn't even realize we were under attack. Then came the shaking. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like watching prophecy unfold in real time. I saw cities on fire, not just from riots or war, but from spiritual collapse. I saw darkness cover entire regions, not like nightfall, but like a suffocating fog of despair. People panicked, leaders scrambled, and the elite, those who had built their empires on control, began to turn on each other. There was chaos, yes, but also something deeper underneath. A divine hand allowing the systems to crack so the truth could finally seep through. And then, silence. Not total destruction, but a holy pause. In that silence, I saw people fall to their knees, some in desperation, others in awe. Prayer returned. Not the rehearsed kind, but raw cries from shattered hearts. People clung to old Bibles, dusty from years of neglect. Neighbors held hands in candlelight. The breakdown had birthed. Awakening. Jesus looked at me and said, "This is mercy. I'm shaking what can be shaken, so they can find what cannot." And suddenly I understood. This wasn't wrath. It was rescue. Painful, yes, but necessary. Because love won't let us stay asleep in deception. The final thing he showed me was a map of America, but not political. It glowed with pockets of light and patches of deep shadow. "These are hearts," he said. "Watch them." And one by one, lights began to flicker on, even in the eye. Darkest places. It started small. One person praying, another turning off the noise, someone else forgiving after years of hate. And as each light sparked, others nearby lit up too. A chain reaction. Jesus turned to me, his voice fierce and tender all at once. "Tell them, the time is now, not to prepare in fear, but in faith. The truth is breaking through, but they must choose." The moment Jesus said, "You must return," I felt a pull, like being yanked from the deepest peace I'd ever known. I didn't want to leave. Every part of me longed to stay in that place where love had a name and truth wasn't buried beneath noise and fear. But he looked into me with such purpose and said, "They need to hear. Many are on the edge. Go." And just like that, I was falling, fast, through layers of light, shadow, memory, and then pain. Blinding pain, screaming. A paramedic shouting, "We got a pulse!" I had been gone for over 20 minutes. No heartbeat, no oxygen. By every definition, I was dead. And yet, here I was, gasping, trembling, eyes fluttering open in a makeshift shelter surrounded by chaos. My husband collapsed on me, sobbing. Ella clung to my side. I couldn't speak right away, but my soul was on fire. I remembered everything. Not just the experience, but the urgency. I had seen what's coming. I had heard Jesus himself. I had felt the deception that keeps this world blind, and the mercy that is trying to shake us awake before it's too late. In the days that followed, I began to speak. Not everyone believed me. Some thought it was trauma or hallucination. But I knew better. I wasn't just brought back to survive. I was brought back to testify, to warn, to encourage, to break the silence. Jesus is not angry. He's not waiting to punish us. He's calling us home, with tears in his eyes. I saw it. He wants hearts, not hoarding. Connection, not paranoia. This isn't about stockpiling food or hiding in fear. It's about returning to prayer, to love, to truth, to him. Before the next shaking comes. And believe me, another shaking is coming. Maybe not in floodwaters, maybe in politics, maybe in the economy, maybe in a war we don't see coming. But it won't just be physical, it will be spiritual. A divine disruption meant to break chains and open eyes. And that's why I'm sharing this. Because too many people are asleep, lulled by comfort, by distraction, by lies whispered so long they sound like truth. But we can't afford to stay numb. We have to awaken. We have to choose, because Jesus is coming back, and the time to prepare is now. So I leave you with this. Heaven is real. Jesus is alive, and your prayers, they matter more than you know. If you're feeling the shaking in your own soul, don't ignore it. Lean in. Ask the hard questions. Fall to your knees. This is a time for truth, not comfort. A time for awakening, not delay. What I experienced wasn't just for me, it was for you. For anyone willing to listen, to seek, to turn back before the next wave hits. The spiritual war is real, but so is the victory, if we're willing to see with open eyes and surrendered hearts. Now that you've heard what I went through, I need to ask you something. Deep down, do you feel it too? That tug in your soul? That sense that the world isn't just off course, but being intentionally led astray? I didn't survive that flood by accident. I was sent back to warn and to remind. There's more going on than the news will ever tell. There's a spiritual war raging for your family, your future, your mind. But you don't have to be afraid, because Jesus is not silent. He's speaking, shaking, and calling us home. What I saw wasn't about religion. It was about truth, and the choice each of us has to make. Will we wake up, or keep scrolling through the darkness? Will we kneel in prayer, or keep trusting in broken systems? The awakening is happening, and you're part of it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a seamless experience that made you question the reality we're living in? Something spiritual? Something unexplainable? Comment below. I read every story, and you never know who else needs to hear yours. If my message spoke to something inside you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel Truth from Beyond and turn on the notifications, because what's coming next may confirm everything you've been sensing and everything I was shown. Click on the next video that's now appearing on your screen. It tells the story of another near-death encounter with a warning for our time. You won't believe how it connects to what I saw. I'm Katie Reynolds. Thank you for listening. And remember, the truth always finds those ready to receive it.